Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of NCOIL One-on-One. With us here today is an insurance public policy legend, Louisiana Insurance Commissioner Jim Donelon, former president of the NAIC and current chair of the NAIC's Southeast Zone. Commissioner Donelon, thank you so much for joining us for this month's NCOIL One-on-One interview.
Well, it's great. It's truly a great honor for me to have this opportunity to talk with your membership and your subscribers. They are very important parts to the insurance regulatory system at the as a state-based system that has served our country so well and needs to be preserved and protected going forward. NCOIL can certainly be a big help in that regard.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us last week for our meeting in Columbus. We were very happy to present you with the Lifetime Achievement Award, honoring all that you have done.
That was quite a moment. I did not know it was happening. In fact, I was standing in the back of the room listening to the lieutenant governor because I was out of the room visiting with one of my former colleagues when the luncheon started and everyone got seated. So when I entered, he was already up and speaking. And as you know, my table was right in front of him. So I stayed in the back until he concluded. Impressive gentleman. He really is. Director French told me he's the former Speaker of the House and one of many candidates for governor when the current governor is term limited at the end of his term, this term.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, we appreciate you being with us. We appreciate being with us here today as well. So let's hop into the questions we have before us. Can you tell us how you first got involved in public service?
Sure. When I was in college, my uncle got elected parish president in my home parish. We call them parishes. Everyone else calls them counties around the country. He got elected parish president, which was quite a big deal in the Donelon family back then. And I began looking at and even participating in various elective offices in college, undergraduate, and then in law school. He mentored me truly and promoted me into pursuing a career in public service. And that was in the early 60s. And I've been about doing it, winning some, losing some, winning more than losing, and serving with the indulgence of the voters in Jefferson and then beyond statewide since my election as insurance commissioner back in 2006.
That's great. So obviously your service in the legislature then culminated in you working in the insurance department, becoming insurance commissioner. What led you to start working on insurance related issues?
Yes, I got elected to the legislature to fill an unexpired term in 1981. And at that time, I had a friend, had a friend who was actually at that time was Secretary of State. And later, he was a colleague in the JAG Corps in the Louisiana Army National Guard. We were a couple of young lieutenants, and he was in the state Senate before that. And I had worked in the governor's office, again, while we were both colleagues, both the father of 3 daughters, and had a lot in common and a great interest in politics. He later, while I was serving in the legislature, got elected insurance commissioner in Louisiana and urged me to pursue a position on the insurance committee when it was first created in the early 90s, as we were enduring a crisis in our non-standard auto insurance market that ultimately set the record for insured losses funded by and paid by LIGA, the Louisiana Insurance Guarantee Association. So the then speaker, John Alario, pulled insurance out of the Commerce Committee and created a standalone insurance committee. And then Commissioner Brown urged me to pursue a seat on that committee, and Speaker Alario appointed me the first vice chair of the House Insurance Committee when it was created. I served 4 years as vice chair, serving also as the floor leader, if you will, for the Department of Insurance at Jim's urging, carrying a significant package of bills in the 90s that first created for Louisiana's participation the legal package necessary for the accreditation program that the NAIC had just established to further regulate insurance on a state basis, but allowing for companies to be overseen by a domestic regulator using a package of model laws to monitor for solvency and giving the other state regulators confidence that a company wanting to do business in their state was being watched for its solvency by an accredited other regulator from another state using a standardized set of laws. And I passed that package at the urging of the then commissioner, and frankly, I have been involved ever since with the department.
Well, it definitely sounds like the people of Louisiana were well served by you getting placed with insurance issues. So, um, prior to serving on the state level, you had also served in local politics on your parish. How do you think serving on the state and local levels differ?
Well, when you're a council member, even though I was council chairman, which was and is the only state parish-wide elected office, we're the Jefferson is the suburb of New Orleans, where our airport is located. Today, it's about 400,000 population. It was back then 200, maybe 250. But even being parish-wide with council members below me at the district level, you still are very close and available to the public that you are elected by and serve. And so I learned early on the necessity of being accessible and available and transparent with my constituents. And I'm proud to say I return all my calls. I don't get that many. It's not that hard. Most people, when I return a call to a constituent, say, "Oh, wow, I didn't expect you to call me back." It kind of makes me wonder why they called if they didn't expect me to call back. But I hear that a couple times a week, and it frankly it helps me because it gives me a daily thumb on the pulse of what's happening out there on the statewide basis, and so I appreciate the opportunity to interact with them, and I guess I learned that in service on the local level at the council level. I only did it for 4 years, and then I ran for lieutenant governor and made the runoff and lost 51 or 52 to 48 or 49 to who ultimately became a friend of mine and supporter through my years running for the office I currently hold as insurance commissioner, even though Representative turned Lieutenant Governor Freeman was a Democrat, and I shortly after that race in 1979 switched to Republican and have been a elected public official under the Republican banner for all those decades since then. But yeah, it's a different perspective when you're statewide, but it's indeed a great honor to have the opportunity, in particular, as the elected regulator, to do what I deem best for my constituents unilaterally. I don't have to get the legislature's approval of my actions. The governor can't veto my regulations or my bulletins or opinions or directives. You act as a constitutional regulator, office holder with the power to regulate insurance on a singular basis. And after Katrina, that was an awesome responsibility, but at the same time, a great opportunity for me to have my make my contribution to the rebuilding of our state after its worst devastation in its history.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you think the value that you kind of brought from your experience in the legislature and serving on the council level? How did that kind of inform your perspective as a regulator? I know not every regulator comes from that background. Sometimes it's others. How do you think the legislative one specifically impacted that?
Well, and it's a great question, and I have seen a great number of my colleagues come from a career path just like mine. Right off the bat, I'm thinking of Commissioner Schmidt in Kansas, was an elected state senator. She succeeded. Well, she was once removed from Sandy Prager, who was a state senator before becoming the elected commissioner in Kansas. Next door and out in Mississippi, my colleague Mike Cheney and I have been almost mirror images of each other. He served in the legislature about the same period of time I did and got elected to insurance commissioner 6 months after I did. I'm the second senior now, and the dean of the regulators is also a former legislator and congressman, Mike Kreidler of the state of Washington, also an elected commissioner. Mike Cheney will soon become the dean of the regulators, of the commissioners, superintendents, and directors, because I didn't run again, and so I will vacate the #2 senior spot. Mike will move up to that next year. Mike Kreidler in Washington has already announced he's not going to run again. So then Mike Cheney, who just got reelected, will become the dean of the NAIC regulators. Yeah, that legislative experience, and it's not just us 12 electeds that are oftentimes from the ranks of legislative experience, but many of the appointees get plucked out of the legislature by their governors, asking them to serve in the role as the commissioner in their state. And I think that's a good background. It certainly gives you, I enjoyed my last 10 years in the state house. I said earlier, the first 4 of the existence of the insurance committee, and then the next 6 up until moving over to the department as chief deputy, as chair of that committee. And what was really enjoyable about it was my members, very few of them, I mean, a single handful, were agents with knowledge and experience in the insurance world. The other 95 or 100 were as clueless as I was when I first went to the legislature about insurance and the technical aspects of it. So when I went to the mic on an insurance issue, I was truly accorded great latitude in expressing my opinion and generating support for my particular perspective on one issue or another. That led me to do things like mandating health insurance coverage on an equal basis for mental illness as to physical illness. It's kind of spread. Sandy Prager did it when she was in the legislature in Kansas, and many other of my colleagues who had legislative experience had also joined on that issue, unbeknownst to me at the time. But it was something that was spreading across the Congress as well as the states back in my early time in the legislature. And it took a few years to make it happen. But with the credibility I got for my service on the committee, I was able to marshal the support ultimately to make that happen.